listeners out there. Welcome to another edition of the Modern Farming Podcast, where we are cultivating agricultural excellence through education.
We're your hosts, Kris and Tara, and together we're growing knowledge about the world that feeds us.
Yes, and this podcast is brought to you by the Green Genes Foundation, who is always into cultivating excellence across the state of Florida and everywhere else. And today we have a really interesting guest. We're excited to welcome Joanna Oswalt to the show. Joanna is the president of the Sumter County Farm Bureau, as well as an advocate for agriculture consulting and agritourism. So welcome, Joanna. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am currently the president for Sumter County Farm Bureau Federation. This is my first year as president. I've been on the board for about 5 years. I do a lot of consulting on agriculture throughout the state and on agritourism. What I found was that people who are new to agriculture don't know where to start. So I started a consulting business on that side, and I was selling a few venues. So I started the agritourism consulting on that side. People, again, don't know where to start on that. So I get to travel throughout the state. I wear a Farm Bureau hat everywhere I go. And that's a little about me.
So seventh generation Floridian, what does that mean to you as far as the passion you bring to agriculture and your businesses?
So I think that to me means that, one, I come from a long line of strong, courageous, bold pioneers. My family settled a community that is where Pasco, Sumter, and Hernando counties meet. It's a little community called Clay Sink. They were cattlemen. They were Christians that started a church out there, Clay Sink Baptist Church. And I think having those values instilled in me of faith, family, and farming all of my life. One of the other things was we were a family where my grandmother, Vera Sloan Boyette, always said there was one more seat at a table. So our house, our family was always full of other agricultural people. And I grew up in that world. My background is really in cattle and citrus. I was blessed to grow up in that. It instilled a lot of hard work in me, but gave me a perspective on agriculture that it is hard work. It brings family, it brings friends together. And what I find now is that people, as our agriculture is leaving in Florida, as we know, people are so fascinated by that world. They don't understand where their food comes from. They don't understand where their meat comes from, and all of the hard work that it takes to go into that.
So you have a long history there. So what inspired you to get involved in the Sumter County Farm Bureau and the Florida Agritourism Association?
So I started, I don't know, maybe about 10 or 12 years ago in the real estate world. And I knew I did not want to sell houses. I had an opportunity to buy and sell some land for clients. And I really just enjoyed that. I love being out on the land. I see land is how we can make it income producing. What can we do with it? Probably like other residential realtors get excited about houses. I get excited about land. I want to know about the soil. Hey, what can we grow on this? What can we do with this? So in that process, I had bought a large piece of property for a client at a Lake County that was going to be used for agriculture. He wanted to have a cow hay operation on it. We put a Connex box on it, one of the metal storage boxes when we first started, so that he could store his equipment until he could get a barn built. And a neighbor called code enforcement on him. So I became very well versed in the Farm Bill and the Right to Farm Act, but I needed help. I knew about Farm Bureau. My grandparents, I've grown up with Farm Bureau, but I didn't really understand how they advocated for our farmers and ranchers. So I reached out to James Sutton, who was the president then, who was a longtime family friend, and said, I need some help. He made one phone call, and then within an hour, that issue was solved. So from that, I really understood that it is always best to come from a place of education and not confrontation, and that our counties, especially our code enforcement, do not understand the Farm Bill. They don't understand Right to Farm Act. They don't understand agritourism. So that was really how I got into wanting to be on the board for Farm Bureau, was to help my clients. Whether I had bought or sold the land to them was not important. Even families, generational families who had land as development is moving in, are facing those issues where they've had a piece of property for a long time. A developer comes in, puts housing next to them. Those people start complaining about the smell, the noise, the cattle, whatever it is, the dust. And so that was an opportunity that the door opened for me to be able to advocate for our farmers and ranchers. And I have been blessed to do that all over the state.
Well, that sounds like it's pretty rewarding. Is that the most rewarding thing about being part of the Farm Bureau and the Agritourism Bureau, or are there other things that you enjoy as well?
I think it's definitely one of the most rewarding things, is being able to advocate and educate. People find it fascinating, that farm life, that ranch life, the working the cows still with horses and dogs. People are fascinated by that still exists here in Florida. I think people don't understand what a big cattle state we are. So being able to help those clients is definitely rewarding for that. I think for me personally, one of the most rewarding things for me is people who are new to agriculture, who have the dream, but they don't know how to get there. And then to watch their dreams come to fruition. So that really is probably one of the most rewarding things, because I truly feel like as Florida is growing, people are moving here in droves. That one of the ways we're going to keep agriculture in the state of Florida is going to be recognizing our smaller farmers and ranchers. And we have so many people who are new to that we can help them start, whether it's an acre and you're going vertical, or you've bought 100 acres or 300 acres and you want to leave legacy land.
So when you're talking about when you help them as the Farm Bureau, what other things does the Farm Bureau do for the average farmer or rancher other than information and helping them with code enforcement?
So we are a federation. What we really do is we are the voice of agriculture. We are advocating for our farmers and ranchers, our producers, in every way possible. We're in Tallahassee, we're in DC. We are trying to help them and trying to help. What we find is people think that our legislators don't care about the farmers and ranchers. Really, it is that they don't know. So one of the things I get to do as a Farm Bureau board member and now as president is do a lot of farm tours. So we take our legislators out on the property and let them see what's going on from start to finish, early mornings, late afternoons, what that looks like. So that is probably one of the biggest things. We educate them. We talk a lot about the Farm Bill. I find that people do not know about the Florida Farm Bill. They don't know about the federal Farm Bill. They don't know about all the statutes that are in there that protect our farmers and ranchers. It's fascinating to me that even our older seasoned farmers and ranchers don't know that. We also talk a lot about USDA and NRCS and FSA, all of the different programs to help protect them and help them offset some of their expenses to help it be an income producing property. For agritourism, it is really about making sure they are in proper protocol. It is about educating our counties, whether it's code enforcement or county administrators, planning and zoning, whoever, on what agritourism looks like, and that it's not a permit that you get. It is a state statute that is in the Farm Bill.
Interesting. So agritourism is a word that's catching on. I don't know that I'd heard it a lot, before. Could you? So we say it from time to time. We hear it. I don't know that everybody or listeners completely understand agritourism. It's an interesting word. Could you kind of help define what that is, and maybe especially in the state of Florida, to people who may not be familiar with agritourism?
Sure. So agritourism is a term that has been around for quite some time. We really have seen it grow in the last probably 10 years or so, where it's becoming more popular. So agritourism is a state statute in the Farm Bill. What it was intended for was a secondary income from our farmers and ranchers. As we all know, they are struggling financially. So agritourism gave them, it's a state statute in the Farm Bill. And what that does is allow them to have the public on their property to create a secondary income. So some examples would be the U-Picks, event venues. We're seeing a lot of those right now, more and more and more. There are some opportunities for education there, where they're bringing out the public to see how we grow our food, about beef, to educate on cattle, timber properties, agritourism. Timber properties still are agritourism. So that is really what it is for, is a secondary income to have a bona fide agricultural operation and then bring the public out for that secondary income. One of the biggest things is educate our public, because we forget when we live this world that we live in the agricultural world, we forget that people live on concrete. So they want to come out and have that experience. They want to come out and pick fresh strawberries or blueberries. They want to come out and pick fresh flowers. The big trend with the event venues was getting married in someone's barn or in the pine trees. That's a big trend, or under oak trees, something different than being in a church. And then that allows our farmers and ranchers to have income on that. And that's really the basis for agritourism. We really like to promote the educational side, but the bottom line is it does offer additional income for those farmers and ranchers by using things they already have: a pole barn, a pond, pine trees, oak trees, anything where they can have those people out.
There's so much information you just gave us about that, and that's awesome. What are some of your favorites, farms in Florida that have been successful at the agritourism?
So here in Sumter County, I think one of the biggest ones that we have seen grow tremendously, that are doing a fantastic job, is Brown and Brown Farms in Oxford. They have like a general store there where you can come in and get fresh produce, honey, barbecue sauce, pickles, all the things that you would do. But then they have opened up a huge area where they have the public come out. They have corn mazes. They do all kinds of things like that. I think that is probably one of the biggest, the most well-known places, because people come from all over. It also gives a lot of our younger people opportunity to work at those things that are. I met a girl who was in FFA and she's working at Brown and Brown, so it gives her a mix of both. Then Kasani Estates, that is in South Lake County over in Groveland. They're 130 acres, I believe. They do a lot of events venue wise there. So they have a lot of weddings. They do invite like the city out to have Employee Appreciation Day. Their agricultural operation is timber. So they are able to operate under agritourism that way. There is another venue called Villa Serafina that is a brand new venue. I really got to walk through that from start to finish. It was a 20-stall horse barn. It is now open for events, but they have the Mini Highlanders as their cow-calf operation, so their bona fide agricultural operation, and then also equestrian. They have breeding and boarding, and then a regulation size arena so they can have equestrian events out. So there's an olive grove there, a fruit grove. They're planning on doing some classes where they invite the public out to learn about canning olives, because I didn't even know olives would grow in Florida.
Yeah.
So those are a couple. Then you have Fancy Farms down in the Plant City area. They are large strawberry producers. They then opened a market. They have the cut flowers, so they invite the public out for that. So they're utilizing their land in more ways than one. They have strawberry season, and then the off time, and then they make all kinds of desserts from her mom's recipes for strawberry shortcake, all the different things we love. But then in their off season, they plant flowers to utilize that land to invite the public out. So there's a lot of those have cattle on them, but people have done everything from like farm to table, where they're growing their vegetables there. They will have people out with a private chef for dinner and use those vegetables in the dinner that you're getting. Beef, same thing, where they have cattle on their property and they're getting people out there where they're bringing in chefs to do that. A lot of people do the different markets. So those are just a few, they're all over the state. But educating people and letting them come out and see and feel what the dirt, and to be able to pick those flowers or pick those blueberries and eat them right off the bush. And that is just getting people. It really is, I think, on the base of everything we do, we want to educate on agriculture and where our food is coming from. Because once people come out, they feel like they have a vested interest in that. And they want to go back and tell people, oh, look at all these blueberries I got, or I got the best strawberries from so-and-so, or I had the best dinner that they grew right there on their property.
Right.
And that excitement is contagious, then the pumpkin patches, instead of just going to Publix or whatever store and buying that, then you get to go back and go, oh, I was at this place, or this is where that came from.
That's amazing. The variety of things that you just mentioned there is awesome. I just have a question before we move on. We have a lot of farmers and producers that listen to the podcast, and maybe they haven't thought about agritourism. So what would be, in your opinion, if someone wanted to start that, what would be the first step to take if you were a farmer or landowner that wanted to do something in agritourism?
So the first step is making sure you have an ag classification on your property. So a lot of people refer to that as like your ag exemption with the county. It's an agricultural classification that you get through your county, wherever that is. And that is verifying that you have a bona fide agricultural operation on your property. So the way that works is that you get the ag classification on your property, and then you are basically, the easiest way to think of it is then once you have the ag classification, you get blanketed by the Farm Bill. And in that Farm Bill is the state statute for agritourism. So that is the most important thing. People who are new to agriculture, we're running into a lot of people who want to buy a piece of property and put a barn up and have weddings there. And it really is a process that you must have that ag classification to be able to operate under agritourism. So that is the most important step. And then the other thing is to think about what you're going to do, what your agritourism operation is going to be, and then setting that up properly. Things from parking and safety issues. And then with the state statute for agritourism, there is specific signage that needs to go up. That is one reason I am such a big part of the Florida Agritourism Association, is they have a website with a toolkit so you can have your signage up. Just like if you had an equestrian property, those equine signs, basically like you understand the risk you're entering at your own risk. So I think also one of the obstacles I find with our farmers and ranchers is we are very accustomed to that lifestyle. And to remember that no matter how small or how big you are, people live on concrete. And what they will find what you do absolutely fascinating, and they want that. They want to connect with the farmers and ranchers and be able to offer that. So whether it's from an educational standpoint that you're going to invite homeschools out or the schools out to see what you do and offer classes, or just the public, or to have different classes like Villa Serafina wants to do with the canning classes for the olives. To be able to do that, or to go through the process for strawberries, blueberries, to let them come out and see what you're doing with your cattle. I have one client that she has the mini Highlanders, and she brings people out on educational tours so they can see the Highlanders, they can touch them, they can feed them, but they just get that experience. And it's such a good feel. And I think that's really one of the most important. But to start off would be to make sure you have an ag classification and that you are running properly under proper protocol for agritourism.
Okay.
So we've talked a lot about the agritourism. What is it that I've heard about the 988 initiative? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can. So the 988, It's Okay to Ask initiative came from an idea. Florida Farm Bureau goes to Washington, D.C. every year for Field to the Hill. And when we're there, we often have the opportunity to speak with Zippy Duval, who's the president for American Farm Bureau Federation. So several years ago, he challenged us to think of how we could help our farmers and ranchers in mental health awareness, because that is a major issue. We are in crisis mode with our farmers and ranchers and mental health. So we were at a meeting with him. He challenged us for that. So at the time, James Sutton was our president. I have been very active on the board for years. So James and I were tossing some ideas back and forth, and how could we reach those? I had an opportunity to work with Everglades Equipment. So I reached out to Tommy Peebles, who is their regional manager director for Everglades here. He's out of the Leesburg and now Brooksville. And we had lunch. From that, it rolled out into an idea of these stickers that we could put those in the cab tractors, because that's where our farmers and ranchers spend most of their time. That's when they do their planning. That's when they do their worrying. That is when things really come to them, good and bad. And that they are alone most of the time. And what we found is, and personal people that we know who spend a lot of times in tractors, your mindset can get very dark during that time. So we created these stickers. Everglades Equipment was completely on board and agreed to put these stickers in one of their all of their cab tractors that they were to sell. So it's a little sticker. It's got 988. What we wanted was a not so in your face, but a gentle reminder that there's someone there to help. So when you call that 988 hotline, which has been in place for a long time, but when you call that 988 hotline and you mention agriculture, farming, ranching, they will direct you to people who specialize in that area. So through that, Everglades jumped on board. We got Florida Farm Bureau Federation on board. And then we won a national award for American Farm Bureau Federation for that grassroots initiative. So it is now, I believe we're in 8 different states. I think we had no idea. We had an opportunity to go out to American Farm Bureau Federation to their national conference last January in San Antonio. And the people who came up to us and told us how impactful that was, people who had lost spouses, people who had lost siblings, people who had called that 988 hotline and it had saved their lives. So we got to connect with a lot of people. Like I said, I think we're in 8 states now, but it has been one of the most rewarding things and such a simple thing. I mean, it's a sticker, but to put in there. So, but it's a cute little sticker with a green tractor on it. It says 988, it's okay. So it's not so in your face, but we found that kids were putting them in their dad's tractors. Wives were putting them in their husband's tractors. Friends were putting them in their friends' tractors. And that, really, if we could just get to one person, all of that was worth it. So it has been a really fantastic program. We are hoping that we will get picked up nationally. We're going to continue to keep working on that. But that is where 988 came from. It was just an idea on how do we help these people and what can we do for mental health awareness.
I hadn't heard about that initiative or even given it much thought, but that's amazing. That's a really powerful.
And we can customize those stickers. We started off with Everglades equipment, and that family so community driven. They were so happy to help. I think there's 5,000 stickers going out a year on that equipment, but we can customize that for other equipment dealers as well, as far as the colors. Right now, we do a lot of green, but we can customize those in any color to be able to put on other equipment. And we've done that in other states.
Interesting. And it's growing. So you've seen a real good response to that, I'm assuming.
We have seen a really good response, not only here in our county or in our state, but like I said, when we were in San Antonio at American Farm Bureau, we really heard the stories from all over, and so many people so excited about being able to share that and take it back to their farm bureaus and be able to do that all over. Because here, our farmers and ranchers seasonally, during hay season, they're in the tractors. During growing season, harvesting, they are out west. Those combines run 24 hours a day, and it can get very lonely and very dark. So that has been a great way to reach so many people. And while it came from us, we are so grateful just for the community that has picked that up.
Amazing. So what advice would you give to a farmer other than call the number? What do you feel you've learned that you would give advice for on a farmer who might be dealing with something like that?
Well, I think one is educating them on some other programs that are out there that could maybe help offset some expenses for them. 2, that they're not alone, that they are not alone. everybody I know who spends time in a tractor can get in there in one mindset and come out in a totally different one. So I think calling the number is, calling the hotline because it's anonymous and being able to connect with someone. We all sometimes need somebody to tell our story to that is not involved. And to know that there are people there to help them, that they're not alone, that more than likely their neighboring farmer and rancher is struggling the same way. So I think supporting agriculture is one of the ways, is supporting our farmers and ranchers, understanding what a different world that is. One freeze, one hurricane, one natural disaster can take out a property, a lifetime of work, a lifetime of generational work, and that can do. I grew up in the citrus business, so I remember in the mid 80s when we had freeze after freeze after freeze, and we were losing everything, how hard that was. And people, the general public, does not understand that our farmers and ranchers farm and ranch and live in agricultural world because it is what their heart knows. It is their passion. It is not typically about the money.
Right.
So I think just that awareness and then, talking in the schools and educating our kids on, the stresses their parents are having, or siblings, or in other communities that we can talk to. People think it's a very glamorous thing, and that it's just all fun, whether you are working cows on horses with your dogs, or you are a row cropper, or a strawberry farmer. They don't understand that is, you do that because you love that.
It's definitely more of a lifestyle that you choose to live, and it's definitely very different than what the average person sees. What are some of the hopes that you have for the Florida agriculture moving forward?
So I hope, and while I am a realtor, I do not really buy and sell a whole lot. Probably about 95% of my business lately has been consulting on agriculture. So what I hope is that we will start recognizing our smaller farmers and ranchers, like I said, whether that's an acre and you're going vertically, whether it's pisciculture, which is fish farming, to our cut flower industry, and that our smaller farmers and ranchers will get recognized, because we are losing our land. And I think those acre to 20 acre to 50 acre producers, in whatever capacity that is what agriculture is going to look like in Florida as we move forward, because we all know, development is coming in. People are moving in droves here, but there's a reason. So I really hope teaching this self-sustainability so that people understand the importance of growing their own food and what that does to them in so many ways. It impacts them financially, that they're able to grow their own food, whether that's beef or some kind of vegetable, fruit. I think it impacts them when they can go out and pick berries or whatever off their trees and understand where that came from. It gives you a sense of accomplishment. Being out on land and nature it's so good for you mentally. But I really think, as our smaller farmers and ranchers, and we have so many young, creative people that are just amazing, that want to live this agricultural world. We've really seen that since COVID.
It has definitely taken off since COVID.
Yes.
Joanna, we talked a lot about what you've done, and you've done some amazing things. So let's talk about what you're going to do. What's up next for you in the next year? What are you trying to get done, or what are your goals?
So several of the things we're trying to do. One of the things we're doing for Sumter County Farm Bureau is, and this is just a small give back to the community, but we are doing birthday boxes. So we are like to impact our youth and our women and give back to the community in some way. So one of the things we started was a birthday box collection. And that is just simply an aluminum pan with the plastic lid, a 9x13. We're collecting birthday cake, a can of Sprite. Then you don't have to use eggs or oil, frosting, birthday candles, the little Dollar Tree, birthday plates, balloons, anything you want to put in there. And then we will have a sticker on the top, and we're going to be giving those back to our schools, our women's shelters, abuse shelters, our veterans, assisted living, anyone like that, because everybody's having a birthday at some point, and our world is struggling financially. So that if we can make one child's birthday better, one mom's birthday better by being able to provide a birthday cake for her child. So that's just a small outreach. One of the other things that we're going to try and do is do an adventure day in Sumter County. We have not done that. I think we did it a long time ago, and that is where we get into the school systems or the homeschooling system, and we bring them out to have just a little agricultural educational day. It's interactive, so we're going to be working with our county and our county school board to do that. One thing we'd like to do also is a taste of Sumter County. We have so many producers that are in our county, from edible flowers to honey, to beef, to fish, to a list of things. All of our vegetable farmers, fruit farmers, and have them come out, and we will hopefully have that where we invite the public out. So you come into one area and you can go through and see all of the producers here and have a taste of things grown in Sumter County. We also will be, we just got to go to the signing of the Florida Farm Bill back in May. So that had been a long time in the waiting, with our Commissioner of Agriculture, Wilton Simpson, and Governor DeSantis. So we got to go for the signing of the Farm Bill for that. There were some new things that came out in that'll be really beneficial for our producers. We are going to work on the next Farm Bill. We will be advocating again in Tallahassee. We'll be advocating in DC. We do a lot of work with our counties. Because of what I get to do, I'm not limited to one county. So there's a large blueberry family that's a little north of me that I have been able to go out and speak with, and hopefully they're going to be doing some agritourism things also. So while I am in Sumter County and it is my heart, it allows me to, what I do allows me to go throughout the state and connect people with their farm bureaus. So it is about building a bigger table. I mean, it truly is. So those are a few things we're doing. We are working with our county to make sure that our agritourism operations are under proper protocol, and that people understand really what that agritourism looks like. And of course, we're going to promote the beef industry because that's my roots. And we have the Sumter County Farmers Market and Cattle Market here that we run a lot of cattle through. So we want to educate people on where your beef comes from as well. So we kind of hit every avenue of agriculture a bit. We're going to continue to educate. We're going to continue to advocate. We're going to get out and try and build that bigger table.
Wow. Yeah, busy year ahead. That sounds interesting. So Joanna, we're about ready to wrap up. We always give our guests a chance to leave the audience with their final words. So the floor is yours to provide what you want to the listeners to remember from this conversation.
I think some final words would be to connect with your local Farm Bureau. We are a federation. Again, we are the voice of agriculture, so we are advocating and educating for you. I think if you're having issues and you're frustrated, that's a great place to start. I think, supporting your local farmers and ranchers and producers and going out to those U-Picks and going out to get your cut flowers from there, your local butcher shops or your local producers. You see all the time where people are offering a quarter of a cow, fresh beef, to go there and try the difference between that and what you're maybe buying at the grocery stores, buying your honey locally, hitting your farmers markets. If you don't have one, go to your Farm Bureau and ask them to help start one there. So I think, educating on that. If you have questions, reach out. There's always somebody at Farm Bureau, Florida Farm Bureau, who is we love to talk about agriculture everywhere we go. We all wear a Farm Bureau hat everywhere we go. For me, I am blessed to be able to bring the agritourism and the advocating for agriculture together. I feel like anytime I'm out on property, whether I'm consulting or just out to visit a property, is always like Ag 101. And what I find is people are fascinated, so don't underestimate what you do. Bring people out, bring your congressman out, bring your House representatives out, bring your senators out, bring your sheriff out, bring your local government out, and let them see. They love to do that. They don't know what that looks like. So I think bringing them out, and I guarantee you they will have a different perspective, so that when you have an issue, they can say, oh no, we were out there and this is what they're doing. So I think we're going to have to step up our game as far as educating on agriculture and letting the public come out to our properties. It starts with our children, and I love Green Gene Foundation and what you all are doing. It starts with our youth. I do a lot with, I was just down at Auburndale High School judging FFA. We'll have sub-districts here, getting in with those kids, whether it's a homeschool group, 4-H, FFA, in planting that seed. And the way we look at it, people say, well, I'm not in agriculture. If you are carrying a purse, if you're wearing shoes, if you're eating, you are in agriculture, and you are supporting that industry.
Right.
So I think don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no dumb question. It is just, educating and asking where that comes from, so you will be able to grow that appreciation for it. And when you educate someone on agriculture, they are going to educate the next person and the next person and the next person. So it becomes a ripple effect, and we are building a bigger table. That is our goal.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I've known very few people who, once you get talking about certain things in agriculture, that leave disinterested. Everybody likes to hear that, so that's really good advice.
Yes, it is. And look for the classes. Go to the conferences. Look for the classes and go. And whether you own, 1 cow or 500 cows, go to those conferences and get more educated on it, and you'll connect with like-minded people. Even if you're not there yet and you want to start that, put yourself in there, because people in agriculture, we want to build a bigger table. We want to tell you what we do and why we do it. And that is really, I stay very busy, and people often ask me how I do all that I do. And it has nothing to do with how I do it. It is why I do it. It is why I do it, because it is what I absolutely love.
Yes. Excellent. Well, thank you, Joanna, for joining us. That's about all the time we have for today. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for having me.
And be sure to follow us, share, and join us again as we grow in the knowledge of the world that feeds us.
Thank you.